welcome. It's guys saying it's going to be a smaller group. I think the holiday and everything is slowed things down, and but it's still a really this is halfway, and I think we're going to cover some really important stuff today. Not so much skills, but kind of a mental thing that I think is super important, and it's kind of the crux where I feel like we all get hung up in what probably hung me up for, I want to say like 5 or 6 years. And you're going to see some stuff today from my early, like 1995 journals. You'll recognize, those of you who are just learning to draw, you will recognize a lot of the kind of one plane stick figure-y stuff, which is really important to see because I finally figured out what was kind of holding me back. And we're going to talk about that today. So I'm going to start right in. Let's see, we're just going to do some catch up, do some polls. There we go. So you should be seeing now the beginning of.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Little slide. So if you guys need something, just talk verbally. This is casual. We're not, well, turn off your audio so that we don't get weird like noise things. So turn off your audio. But if you need something, turn it on and let me know. I can't access chat easily during the shares. So today, as I said, really important stuff. So this is silencing our critics, and that means the ones in our head. And that's kind of the crux for me, and I'll talk about that. And also making connections. So we're going to start talking about digging deeper and how you can do some really, really interesting things with journaling, especially if you're kind of struggling with how to come up with projects and things. And then we're going to continue with more of the drawing tricks and tools. But I want to check in first. So how are we doing with our keeping a routine that your pledge? I will make quiet time in my life, turn off phones and computers and TVs for, if you can, 15 minutes a day or nearly every day. Even just to write, if it doesn't involve drawing or whatever, but just to keep it going. So what I want to do now, and I'm going to roll through a number of polls here. Okay, so how did you do with your pledge to do almost every day? But I am going to kind of hold us to the everyday, because when you're first starting out, keeping to these practices is really important, because it's so easy to let it go until all of a sudden 3 or 4 months have gone by and you've lost all the skills that you spent such a long time building. So looks like we have, I'm letting everybody kind of log in. I'll be able to share the results. It looks like, okay, we've got everybody have voted. So we've got one person, not well, I'm just too busy. And 3 of you said, okay, but I still have to remind myself to try. And 4 out of 8, so half of you, if we take into account everybody pretty well, you're starting to feel like it's a habit. So I will share the results there. That's fantastic. So keep at it. Try to just do a little bit, what we're trying to do is get to a majority of the time you feel free and like it's a part of your everyday habit now to grab your journal and just go, right, oh, hey, even if it's just the weather, it was a rainy day, or it was a beautiful day, or I heard of white-crowned sparrow like I did the other day. So one little thing. So that's really important. All right, Apple, this is silly. All right, so our next thing that's really important that we worked on besides our routine. So, oh, this is going to make me go through it again. So we already did this. And then we did our poll. And remember, so as we get more into drawing, this is really important. That's our anti-pretty page pledge. So we promised ourselves journaling is perfect everyday drawing practice, not a perfect drawing every day. So I think that's really important to internalize. And this chapter kind of is a lot about that. So let's take a look at where you all are. So for our next one, how are you doing with the drawing practice? And some of you are already artists or drawers, sketchers, and then so you might have a different answer to this. But those of you who are new or struggling or halfway, are you doing really well? Are you doing okay or not good? Or you're trying to look for other ways since you already draw, but you struggle because drawing is too much of your focus. So let's see how everybody's doing. Almost.
I don't see the poll. Have you posted it already?
Yeah, I did. 7 of 8 have
Okay, I'm not
let's see if
seeing it
there's
for
a
some reason.
window. Maybe look at all your windows. There might be a window.
That's what I'm doing now. I'm
Yeah.
still not seeing it.
I'm afraid I can't reshare it without killing
Okay.
it. So the questions are, so how is your drawing practice going? Really well. You're feeling comfortable adding drawings, even if you're not totally in love with them, or you're doing okay, you're persevering and feeling like the baby steps are working, or you're not doing well at all, like you're not liking it. Or for those of you who are already comfortable drawing, but want to find other ways of expression, you feel like you're doing that. So we had, where would you find yourself in that continuum?
I think I'm getting tied up with the basics, like trying to find the shapes. I used to just sit down and draw something, and now I'm finding myself like trying to relearn to draw, and I'm getting a little more verklempt with it all, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really feel as comfortable as I used to feel when I just sat down and drew something.
Oh, well, maybe you need to dial back and just, throw it out
Yeah,
the window and
maybe.
just go back to what you like. And I think that's an
Yeah, I
important,
overthink.
exactly. And I think that's why we want to talk about this. It's really important if this, everyone has a different pathway to learning to do something. There is no one method that works for every single person exactly the same way. So if it's not working for you, do try something else. And that can really help. Sometimes you do need to persevere, and it's just a matter of the pencil miles. But if you're feeling completely cross-wired, like, okay, no, like I can't do the dot thing, or the grid thing is ridiculous, or whatever, then maybe think about that. Maybe your path to drawing is a different one, and we'll need to work on that. So this is important to see. We're kind of split half and half here. Yeah, a third, basically, a little bit. That some of you are great. You're feeling comfortable now. Some of you are like, yeah, okay, I'm persevering, and then there are 2 people who already are comfortable drawing, but one of the goals they wanted to do is not focus so much on the drawing, which I think is really an important thing to think about. So that's great. Now I have to see, how did I have to stop my, the slideshow is funny. It's just going to, I have to stop it every time and do it manually. So we'll see. So now we are going to, I want to hear about the voices in your head. And that's the theme of this chapter. So how are you doing with those voices? And the voices in your head is that inner critic that we all do, or the thing that makes us not succeed. And I think that's the reason this is kind of halfway, is that this is the hump where a lot of people just don't get over this grappling with the voices. So let's look at, I kind of want to hear from you what you feel like your bête noire. What are the voices that you most struggle with? So I hope you all can see this. I know I just launched it, so I hope you can all see it now. Which voices, or maybe you're not having these voices, but as you're looking at your pages, are you hearing any of these voices? Are you hearing voices that tell you, like, I should be doing something more productive? Are you hearing voices that are the digital world, that's just life that's coming into the world you want to inhabit in journaling? And it could be, nope, I'm not having these voices. And it could be about writing, not drawing. Maybe you're comfortable drawing. And if you can't see the poll, it might be because you're on a device. The devices are really hard to navigate with the polls. So I don't know, Robin, if you can't see it, it might be, okay, good.
I got mine and I submitted it. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, well, one person may have had to step away because I've only got 7 out of 8. And that's okay. We're going to end it.
I'm the person you don't have. It's because none of those really speak for me.
Okay,
Right.
well, let's talk about, I'm going to end it, and then why don't you tell us well, first let me go over the results. So it looks like a lot of you are still having more than half are saying, oh gosh, no, I still look at it and go, that's horrible. Or I can't draw. Writing is still a challenge. And I'm pushing you a lot to kind of extend yourselves into the verbal world. And then, yep, I hear the one that's like, I should be doing something productive, cleaning the house or going shopping or whatever. The urban world, the busy life, that's very hard to shut down.
The lower down on the list, choices were not visible to me.
Oh, okay.
So I just picked something, even though I would have otherwise said that they don't have the voices.
Okay, good.
But I couldn't see it.
Yeah, I should have said you have to scroll down, or other issues. So who didn't vote? I didn't see you.
I didn't.
Tell us what's the issue or non-issue for you.
Well, the couple of things that are issues that aren't on there. One of them, oddly enough, is I don't like the way I print.
Okay,
and that actually
one. I'm going to add a spotlight one. So that's a good one to talk about. You mean like your writing, the way it looks on the page?
Yeah. And that's, part of that is because I'm quite, like, I draw every day. I have for a long time. And I'm pretty fussy about my drawings, but when I put writing in there, it kind of messes them up. And so I have to let that one go. And I've actually worked hard, sort of hard, maybe hard, on trying to print a bit differently so that it does seem more visually suitable and not messy. I don't know. So that's one thing. But the other thing was, what I've been trying to do is use the journaling as a tool for really collecting information. And I can trip over the drawing on the way to trying to collect information, because, you know, because I can fuss all day with the drawing. And I don't think that's valuable to be doing in this particular instance for me, because what I want to do is get better at collecting information and analyzing information. So, you know,
Really good to
the
hear
drawing.
that. I'm so glad you shared that, Gwen, because I can hear other people's voices are going like, man, I wish I had that problem. I want to draw, and they're like, I don't want to draw, so I'm going to skip right to the information. So, so I totally get it though. The printing can become a crutch as well for that's your aesthetic coming in and just wanting everything to look beautiful. And we do have to fight with that. I did too. I had to come years and years ago when I was first starting out. I saw people doing these amazing headlines and calligraphy and crazy beautiful writing. But when I get all excited about something, my writing can become almost illegible. Like, yeah, and then I just have to let that go. So I made a decision a long time ago. I don't do headlines. I don't do special writing because I would go down that rabbit hole and that's all I would do. And my goal, like you, is to increase my observation and nature journaling. That's what this is about. This isn't an art journaling. Art journaling is where you do focus on incredible layouts and incredible printing, and you actually use theories of layout and proportions to get these gorgeous pages. But what we want to do is get all excited about something we're observing. And so here's a good example of, like, I went with a group Friday, and to me, I have to say, I was like, this page, it's not showing all that great. I'll do it with my overhead camera shortly, but I froze up. Where were we? All right, Gwen, thank you. Sorry about that ridiculous moment, but because this was
Can I
really
add something?
important. Yeah, Deborah, go ahead. I think
I'm sorry.
I'm going to switch to gallery view because I want everybody to see everybody. So make sure you've got the gallery view on. So go ahead, Deborah.
Oh, I was just going to say that was, I checked other because that's kind of my issue. First of all, I was an early childhood educator in my career, so I printed a lot because of printing with the children. And my printing used to really be nice, but not so much my cursive. But I have arthritis in my hands, and there's a couple of things that bother me similarly to what we were talking about. But I'll have, one comment that's this direction and another this direction, another this direction. And then I'll think of something else and there won't be room to write it in there, and it's kind of messy. So my issue has never really been the drawings. I'm okay that if, they're stick figures, but it's been looking at that page, and it's just, that's what bothers me.
when you, and I saw that on I hope everyone's looking at the Padlet. There's been some excellent shares. And I think if you think of something new, go to the next page. It's okay to have a page that only has one sentence on it. And we kind of have to let go of that fear that every page has to be a complete perfect page. That's one thing. You can also glue in these extra, just write it on another piece of paper, put it on there like a peekaboo thing, or it's okay to have these extra things. You can also add an extra page in to a journal. If you don't have a binder type, cut a page that's smaller than your journal, and you can glue it carefully in, and then have like or even make it an accordion fold out. And just don't worry too much about the it's gotta be this way. And I think humans are visual animals. We evolved to use our very well developed brains and eye coordination. So we love pictures, we love these things, but I think a lot of this came to pass after the internet became part of our lives, and there's all these ways that we see literally thousands, maybe in a week, of other people's pages, and we tend to yardstick ourselves, measure ourselves against, oh, I want mine to look that perfect. I want mine to look like Claire Walker Leslie or Hannah Hinchman. They were the people I most wanted to be like. And when they weren't, I stopped journaling for about 10 years because I couldn't get there fast enough. I was very, very impatient.
Briefly.
So that I
So
think
if you're having hand direction,
oh, you're breaking in and out, Valerie.
so
We lost
depending on
her.
how thick,
I'm not. We're you're breaking in and out, so we're not hearing you.
okay, well, my connection is pretty crappy. I lost audio for a little bit,
Yeah, we couldn't hear
but
what you said.
so if your panel is thin enough, you can get these little, I think it's called like a Japanese writing board
Uh-huh.
that has a grid on it, and you could keep it in your journal and put it under the page to serve as a writing guide.
Oh,
Oh, if you don't like your like to for height of your,
Or to make things just be straight.
if your
Can you
paper
see
is,
that? Yeah, what about heavy paper?
I wouldn't work.
It
You would
won't
have to draw in
see
with,
through it from paper, but it will work for thinner paper.
yeah. So a lot of people I see will scribe really faint pencil marks if you want your printing to be perfectly straight, if that's important to you. Like I said, I was telling Jill, I had to give up on that because I would have let that take over my journal pages. And so I have to be okay when it goes wonky. And it goes wonky sometimes especially where I'm all excited about something and I'm trying to write really fast. And all of a sudden I'll realize my whole page is kind of crooked. And that's okay. Eventually though, your writing will get more controlled and that, but use lines, use scribes if that helps you out for sure. My paper, like you, Jill, mine is too thick. I couldn't use that guide underneath. I use 90-pound watercolor paper. So, so that's really, I think, so these ideas are really great to talk about and to sort of work through. What I was trying to say when I was talking about this page is, to me, when I was there, this wasn't making me happy. This was just like me. And that's okay. Not every page is going to make me go, fabulous. I was just recording information. And, I still look at it and I want to go back and make it better, right? But that wasn't how that day went. That would be like just, I don't need it to be exactly, amazing every single time. So I recorded some interesting things and I still have to go back and find out why, like, these two hummingbird flowers have different morphologies, completely different morphologies, really interesting. So that's the rabbit hole I'm going to go down. So let's take a look now, though. There's more I want to do, and this is where we're going to get into some sharing as well. I'm going to make you guys kind of talk about some things. But first, let's see. Now, one of the I think one of the and another important thing that for this chapter 4, we're talking about week 4, is when we talk about those voices in our head. And what I tried to do, it took me years kind of to tackle those voices. So it took me years to get over those voices and really come up with a way to turn them off. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. But so here's what we learned in this chapter. That one, don't measure yourself against these people, especially like everybody talks about these really well-known journalers or poets, you know, Hannah Hinchman, Claire Walker Leslie, John Muir Laws, Mary Oliver. But they are professional full-time artists. So if you read their works, often you're like, wait, I can't do this. I can't do what they do because I'm not a full-time artist. I don't have all this time and resources to put into it. So it's okay to be busy. It's okay to have family obligations, children, grandchildren, jobs, excuse me. And I think many of us also have the, we're just get interested in a lot of things. We're learning watercolor, but then on the other hand, you're like, oh, I want to try acrylic, or you're also a quilter or whatever. We're creative people. So it's okay to be busy. That's like number one. And then it's also okay to have that parallel life where we're busy, we have jobs, we have family, you're taking care of a parent or children, like I said. It's okay to want to embrace this part of our lives. And then the most important thing, I think, is being kind to yourself. And what does that mean? That means learning to accept compliments, learning to love what you are putting on your page right now, not thinking, oh, it's, 5 years from now, I'm going to like what I'm doing, but to really like what you're doing right now. And then what I call, well, that's what I will not judge. So don't judge your work harshly. It's okay to say I am improving, but also just be really happy with what you are doing now. And then staying true to the things we've already talked about, your quiet time. I use this staying true to the left brain. I wrote this in the book, although since the book came out, there's been science that's actually indicated that there really is no such thing as left brain, right brain anymore, but it makes a good story. So we're going to use it as a metaphor rather than true science anymore. There's this book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. It actually isn't scientifically accurate anymore. You need your whole brain to do these things. So there was this idea that the left brain, the right brain's creative, the left brain is the one that wants order. And what I say is stay true to that part of your brain that wants it to be perfect. Jill talked about it, not liking her printing. Those of us who don't like our drawings or the layout or whatever, that's that part of you that wants it to be orderly, perfect. Your creative side then gets its feelings hurt and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's okay to kind of feed that part of you that wants perfection, but don't let it take over. And staying true to yourself is accepting compliments, which we're going to practice in just a moment. And then other people, nature journaling can be a very solitary thing, but I want to urge you to join a group, a live group in your area if you have a group, or start a group, or take part in an online community, because sharing is what's going to help you get over a lot of these hurdles. Here's a great story. So I had a really in the middle of where I was really learning to draw and be comfortable with this type of nature journaling. And what I decided is that, you know what, I really need to just get out with other people, draw with other people, share my work with other people, and also do it in public where other people were watching me. And it was so hard, I have to tell you. I mean, this was years ago. This was, I want to say 3 years ago, when I just was really diving in here. I also started going to the Desert Museum locally. This was at the Natural History Museum in London, met up with some people that I met online. Hilariously, here I am standing in the Hall of Mammals and working on this elephant sketch, kind of completely bombing what I felt like completely bombing the whale, which takes up the entire room. But there's also an elephant and a hippo right there. So I was sketching this, and all of a sudden on my left ear, I heard this click, and I'm like, what? And turn around, and there was a couple behind me watching me and taking pictures of me drawing, and taking a picture over my shoulder of my drawing without my permission, because they thought I was part of the museum display. But you know what? When I turned around and smiled, they said, oh my God, that's amazing. And do you know what my first reaction was? To say, oh no, this is horrible. No, these are horrible. No, really, I'm not an artist. And I had to like shut my mouth, smile, and say, thank you. And it was at that point where I started improving hugely, because you know what? I internalized that. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, maybe I am. Maybe this is cool. So I share that because it was terrifying. I can't tell you how many times I went, to the Desert Museum here in Tucson, live sketching animals, super hard. Natural History Museum's much easier because the animals don't move, they're stuffed. But it was really, really important. So I'm not going to make you go live sketch right now, and but we are going to do breakout rooms. So there are 8 of us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, 9. Yay, Sandy just made it. I'm going to create some breakout rooms and put you guys in like maybe 2 to 3 per room. So the one room's going to have 3, I think. Oh no, we could do 9. We could do 3 per room. Yeah, let's do that. And what I want you to do is, in your room, hold up your, I would spotlight, or make sure your views are such that the speaker view, so if you hold up your journal, it's big. And then your co-room attendees are going to compliment your work, and you're going to have to say thank you. And you're not going to be able to say, oh no, I could do so much better, or no, it's not. You have to say thank you, I really loved doing this, or thank you, this is really cool, or yeah, you know what, this was really fun, yeah. And just, I'm gonna make you do it, because I will urge you to go out in public and start doing it, and you'll be amazed at the number of people who come up to you and are like, what are you doing? Are you drawing? And they'll say, I wish I could do that. And you have to listen to those voices, because you are doing it. You may not love what you're doing right yet, but it will help you jump over that line much, much faster. So take me a second to make these rooms. So, all right, I'm going to give it 1 more minute. So hopefully everyone's got a chance to do their thing. If you guys are done and want to come back to the main room, just go ahead and leave your breakout rooms. Oh, you can go ahead and unmute. How is it?
That was cool.
How'd it go?
Oh, I want to talk to Jean some more.
Yeah. We have a lot in common. Total
Okay,
opposites.
that's great to know. All right, people are trickling back in. How, Marlene and Marilee, how'd you do? Oh, go ahead and unmute. I think it mutes you automatically when it comes back in. Sorry about that.
Hello.
It-
There we
it
go.
was good.
I was trying to mute my picture, way up in the corner.
Yeah.
This is not working. Anyway, that was really helpful.
Good.
I was telling Marilee that I just saw where the crawdads sing, and oh my gosh, the pictures were amazing. And I told my husband, I quit. I went through the whole thing like, I can't do this. Look how good this, comparing, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. But anyway, I think I'm back on track. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks to Marilee. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
that
helpful.
measuring, yardsticking ourselves. I call it yardsticking. I think I said I could also call it tape measuring, and then you take the tape measure and strangle yourself because you
Right.
just, yeah,
That's exactly right.
it's bad for us. There's enough difficulty in life. We don't want to introduce more angst. We want this to be something that's joyful and relaxing. So, and whether it's
Right.
you're already an established artist, but you're having trouble like letting that go, like not letting the art take over. And I'm not a professional artist, but I do have to say I can find myself like I can go just want to draw. I don't want to do anything else. And sometimes I let myself do that. But we don't want that to necessarily take over everything. Nature journaling by definition is paying attention. We're going to find out why paying attention and why the nature journaling is an important thing. So I'm going to broadcast and let everybody know I'm going to shut down the rooms. So maybe broadcast voice. Okay, everybody. So I'm going to shut down the rooms. So come on back to the main rooms. Hopefully you've got your shares done. Let's see. Maybe they can't figure out. I closed the rooms here, but here they come. Okay, there's Deborah. You might have to unmute yourself. So Robin, Sandy, and Valerie. Okay, everybody, I'm going to close the rooms. Hopefully they'll come back. I didn't cut them all off.
There they are.
Okay. Excellent. Let's let everybody kind of get back in. Wonderful.
Lost Valerie.
There she is.
Shit.
Sometimes it just says so 1, 2, 3. One more. We're missing a person. Someone fell off entirely.
Who
1,
was,
2, 3,
was it someone from room 4? Because she was having trouble.
6, 8.
Was it me?
Deborah, Marlene. No, we only have 8. There were 9. Wait just a
Rob-
moment. Let's see. Marilee, Jill, Jean, Gwen, Valerie, Deborah's here. Marlene, Sandy, who are we missing?
I
Okay,
think we're missing Robin.
that's it. Thank you. Was she in your group? Let me check email to see if she's having. There she
Oh,
comes.
there she is.
Oh, the phone was probably hard. Was that harder to, okay, she's just now reconnecting. Robin, sorry about that. Was that your phone made it hard to switch back and forth? Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
the phone, sometimes the phone makes it harder to swap in between those. So thanks for coming.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Hopefully that exercise kind of helped you see that when we get these direct comments and one-on-one, it's really healthy for us. And I urge you to find a group, get out there, or find a pal or a friend. And if you don't have anyone locally, join an online forum. And I do have that one that is much, much smaller. I think it is growing, but I think we have 3,000 people versus 50,000 people that are now on the Nature Journal Club. And so I definitely, in my little group, I ask anyone who's a professional artist, the only way I will ask them to participate is to be a mentor and not to post their gorgeous, perfect pages, so that it's just for beginners and for people who have questions and want to share their baby steps and not feel like it has to be an amazing, professional artist page. So I urge you to get involved with those because it's really helpful. Deborah posts a lot. I think she can verify that it's a healthy place to be.
Oh, it certainly is. And I still consider myself a beginner. I'm probably in the middle of my second year now. And the community is just so wonderful and nurturing. I've really appreciated being part of it.
It's fun. Good. So
which group is that called?
I will put it in the chat. It's it's a private Facebook group that I started called, it's the same name as the book, Nature Journaling for a Wildlife. The link should be also on your resources page, but I'll put it on there if it isn't. And if you're not on Facebook, we can use Padlet as well. I am in the process of investigating how to actually create a better community on my website, because I hear from a lot of people they're sick of Facebook. And and we're just looking for alternatives for that. So I'm stay tuned. Padlet is very LITE. It's not the same thing, but we're working on that. So we're going to kind of move to our next phase. Part of what we were doing is with these chapters. Let me change this view. So great. So this part wasn't super complicated. So we're not going to do a whole lot in the whole idea of this reflecting reminders, metaphors, similes. You all have been posting on Padlet and doing a really, really great job, where we share everything from facts to feelings, using things like smells and textures, colors, emotions even. And hopefully you've been diving into that. I see some great examples on Padlet. So don't miss out on that on Padlet. What I wanted to get to was more of the okay, now so what? We've delved into all these ideas of what are you seeing? What does it remind you of? Learning to write a little more deeply about our subjects, learning to sketch, draw, but most importantly, the paying attention. And the last part of the week 4 really dove into this idea of let's enhance our practice by perhaps, and this is just a suggestion, but if you're maybe struggling a little bit with, well, okay, my backyard's great, but I'd really like to do something a little more to grow my practice, I would consider adopting a place, whether it's a local park, mountain, and in this case, I'm going to show you a project I did a number of years ago. Wow, a long time ago, more like 10, 15 years ago, that became a really interesting project, because adopting a place that you would go back to regularly to record, and that's what nature journaling is about. It's paying attention, recording, you're getting your metadata, you're getting species, you're noticing, you're recording information about everything you possibly can. This enhances your habit. And that's what I've been trying to get really hammer into us, is that making this a habit is what's going to make it part of our lives for a very long time. You also notice changes when you're going back to the same place all the time. And like, this could be your backyard or a corner of your backyard. It could be a cubic yard of space. It could be an entire mountain range. And that sense of place that this helps develop is extremely profound. Here's an example of what we did. So this is back in between 1994, 95. I developed 5. This is the Santa Catalina Mountains outside of Tucson. I can get to it within 30 minutes of where I live. And you drive up the mountain and you go from the Sonoran Desert all the way up to spruce forest. And there were 5 life zones. So I developed a stop, and this is just by car. So it didn't involve a lot of great hiking, just maybe I would go half a mile at each stop. And at each stop, I would record everything that I possibly could. And I did this every month for 2 years. And so here's what one entry looked like, this is one February 23rd. And I did this every month for 2 years. And notice, I want you to notice here, I'm going to pause. Notice my drawings. It's going to look familiar to a lot of you who are just starting out. These are very, very rudimentary. I'm mostly doing writing and focusing on observation. So notice the drawings. I think it's significant. Look at that tree. It's very, very basic. I'm just using very inexpensive lined paper, which is now starting to be yellow. So that really wasn't a good choice. It was cheap paper. So that's why I urge you to get good paper. Heavy on the observations, lots of notes. And there's like stop 4, stop 5. I put the elevation, the time, what the weather is at the moment. And then I also had notes. So under each observation at the end, I would write myself questions. I really couldn't remember, when do rock runs mate, or notations that I had looked up, etc. So very, very interesting. And what did this become? This actually became the backbone for our book, the Southern Arizona Nature Almanac. So your data can become something really long-reaching for yourself or something to share with the community. So that's just by way of saying that you can do an awful lot with this. And this sense of place, this sense of going deeper. I want to read this wonderful John Muir Law's quote that I always go back to. The practice of journaling draws us into a deeper relationship with nature. So I want us to remember this, okay? This is why we're doing it. Not to make perfect, pretty pages. The observation and gentle, directed attention of keeping a nature journal is love. As you develop your own practice, I encourage you to be open to this aspect of the process. Let yourself fall in love and be aware of how it changes and moves you. Use it to empower you to stewardship, education, or a richer and more passionate relationship with the world. I just love that. I think that it is the essence of what we are doing and why we're doing what we're doing. So let's check in. I want to check in with the benchmarks.
Roseanne, I have a quick question.
Sure.
When you drove that road, did you say you went once a month, once a week?
Once a month for 2 years.
Once a month. Once a month for 2 years.
I think once a week would have been biting off more than I could chew, and it would have failed. Plus the changes are more subtle. So over a month, there's quite a lot of changes. And then the book ended up being, each chapter was a month. So it's an almanac. So, it would you start with January, this is what's happening in January. And then and it covered each life zone. And it was really fun to be able to go and notice all these things. And you could actually start seeing the changes. It doesn't have to be that huge. That was a really big project, but you could do it at one location, a creek by your house, or like I said, your backyard, 1 square meter of your backyard. What are the changes? Who shows up when? But if doing it at the same time is each observational point is really critical so that you could compare. So say you chose a square meter in your backyard, you would want to do every day at 7 a.m. or every day at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. But that's a lot of work. Or you do it every week at Saturday at 7 a.m. Something like that. That way you are comparing the same thing. Then you can see, what the changes are: rainfall, soil, leaves, insects, who's there, who's doing what. And it takes time. You're talking about a project that's going to be a long-term project. So, okay. I want to check in now on these, excuse me. We're going to go for our benchmarks here. Okay, we talked about the staying true to ourselves. We're going to back up a little bit because I want to know how you think you're doing with the being kind of killing the voices that are killing our joy of doing this. So which of the staying true triggers did you practice? And in your homework, you were asked to do at least 2. Did you stay true to your quiet time? Did you give your left brain habit and order, if not perfection? Were you good at accepting praise and holding on to it? And did you try going out and joining other people or sharing your work with other people? All right, almost there. All right, do we need more time, or are one of us can't see it or stepping away? Well, we might have one person stepped away. So, okay, so I'm going to share the results. So looks like great. A majority of you stay true to the quiet time. Yay. And giving your left brain the necessary habit and order in order to make it try to shut up and not kill your creativity. 3 of you staying, were accepting praise, yay, and holding on to it. That's great. And 3 of you got out with others. Wonderful. So that's great. Love to hear that. That's really good news. And I think there's another one I want to share. Oops. Yep. Your second set of benchmarks. Okay. Okay. And we haven't talked a lot about these because, like I said, I think these are things you work on yourself, and I've seen you all doing great on Padlet. But those relational figures of speech that were in your homework, metaphors, similes, reminders, how did you do, and what were they? I see that I accidentally made this a single choice and it was supposed to be multiple choice. I'm not sure I can edit the poll now. So just pick your favorite ones that you did, and then we can talk about them. Sorry about that. It was supposed to be multiple choice. Because I saw that most people on Padlet were trying at least one, if not all three. I saw lots of reminders. I think similes and metaphors are a little bit more brainiac. You have to really think about them to add them to a journal. But it's really just an exercise to get you to think outside the writing box a little bit. All right, so kind of everybody tried, like half tried metaphors, yay, and similes, a little harder. Similes are the ones that you usually have like or such as. Metaphors where it's you use something that's like not even close to what it is as a comparison. And then reminders, I think we all have been using those. It reminds me of, great, wonderful. So, oh, I can share those results real quick. And then we will kind of move on to the visual things that we continued with. Okay, close the polls. Great. So now, as we kept going, you were still doing more of the drawing. And this time, now last time during our session, I included more, I kind of actually jumped ahead one week. We covered the dot mapping and the big shapes and connecting the dots. And this time we wanted to introduce the viewfinders and the viewfinders and grids. So a viewfinder is taking, you either make your own, there's one in the back of the book in 2 different sizes, and you use it to get yourself to see just one part of something or to frame a view for a landscapeito, and then you draw what's in that. And as Deborah did in her Padlet I loved, you can also use your hands. And then there's another method of transferring something that you see onto a journal. I'll show you. It's the grid, and you're literally breaking up a view of something into like 6 or so. It doesn't matter how many squares, as long as what you sketch in your journal in pencil is the same as what you're holding up to look through. And you're just breaking it down into little bites. And I'll show you examples of how that worked. And then just a reminder, we're going to keep trying. If you like it, if you don't like it, don't do it. Using the big, like finding the big shapes, using little dots to index them, and then connecting the dots. And I know one of you on Padlet said you got way out of control with the dots. And I think that's really easy to do, especially if you're tackling too difficult of subjects. And we'll talk about that too. Narrowing things down to the biggest shapes. We're only talking about 2, 3, maximum of 4 shapes. So you have fewer dots. And then don't forget to check your proportions. So in this example here, we are looking at viewfinders pulling out just little details in this little desert scene to isolate them. Christine Elder, this is a great example of how instead of drawing the entire cholla skeleton here, she used a homemade little viewfinder. You can use old 35mm slide frames to isolate something, and then she just drew the texture there. That's an example. Here's an example of, instead of drawing an entire field of brittle bush, what I did here was isolate them down into individual views, but I went a step farther and I drew them every few weeks, the same flowers. So that's another way you can isolate. And instead of drawing the entire field, you just focus on one thing. Here are two different examples. Viewfinder can also be taking like this giant tree, and I zoomed in on just the little owlet that was there. That's an example of an imaginary viewfinder. I just used my hands or my brain to create a box and just pulled that out. Or the poplar tree round viewfinders, just to focus on individual things. Just a simple way to get a lot more done in a short amount of time. Here's an example of a winterscape and, a landscapeito, and then a viewfinder of just a little icicle example. So viewfinders can be very, very helpful. This example is in the book, and I'm also going to show, I think, 3 other ones. You could, so I'm going to overlay the grid and show how the grid drawing works. You don't have to use grids. You can just wing it or do your own. Some of you are maybe already good at the proportions, but if you struggle with getting the proportions right, the grids can really help. So you could do this entire scene, but that would be a lot to tackle. So what I did was zeroed in and focused on just a part of it. So I wasn't trying to draw too much. If you bite off too much for a little landscapeito in your journal, you'll be there all day, and it's more like you're drawing an entire painting rather than just a little capture. So I pulled that out, and using the grid system, draw an identical proportion grid in pencil in the journal. See, there are same proportions here. That's why you use the little system that's in the back of the journal. Your proportions have to be the same. Then you literally just walk from square to square or rectangle. These are not squares. And using the little squares, this is a very fast little capture. This isn't perfect, no, but this is literally a 10-minute sketch, or less than 10 minutes. You could do this in 5. Pulling each element into its individual grid. Very simple, very fast. When you're in the wild and you're holding up your grid, what you do, the clear grids, either the ones like an acetate one, you can buy them from art supply stores. There's ones you can cut out in the back of the book. You can draw them on a clear Perspex, the plexiglass with dry erase, just so long as it matches what's in your journal. What I do with the clear Perspex is I draw a grid first in my journal, then I copy it with dry erase marker onto my plastic. And when you hold it up, just remember, like, mark a corner, like I'm going to put my thumb. It's going to be this rock where I'm always going to hold it back up on. So you're always getting the right place. Otherwise, you're going to be all over the place. We can talk about that more in a minute. But here's an example of a very, very complex landscape. I was so tempted to want to draw this entire gorgeous scene of the Brooks Range in Alaska, but I didn't have time for that. I probably had 20 minutes and maybe 30 maximum. And so I decided, instead of trying to draw the whole thing, I'm going to zero in. That's what's great about viewfinders. This is a viewfinder. This happens to have a grid in it, but it's also a viewfinder. Let's capture just that little portion there. And so I sat down by the creek and very quickly sketched in just that portion of the mountain range. this is what it ended up looking like. I think it's a pretty decent capture. Is it exact? No, but it's a pretty good capture of what that scene was like. And it is what the landscape pedos are for. And you can see how I added the frame to keep it kind of within. I like to spill sometimes the foliage out just for fun. And the creek kind of spilled off the edges. That's a good example of how to use a viewfinder and grid system to draw. And here's another one. Would you draw the whole thing? Sure, you could definitely do that. I just decided that was going to be a bit too big for my page too. So I focused on just pulling a portion of it out. And sitting there, this was probably about a 35-minute sketch to most of the watercolor. There's what I captured, and there's what I ended up with. Is it exact? No, but I feel like it kind of captured the essence of it. And because I loved all the rocks, which were sparkly, I pulled that into the foreground and put the rocks, a rock down at the foreground. So that kind of helps ground it literally. So that's how those systems work.
Can I ask us a quick question?
Sure.
Is that like a painter's tape or something that you're using
Oh,
to help
yes.
outline your?
I just buy, this is 1/4 inch. Yes, it's just masking tape, painter's tape. You can buy it in white. Someone had since told me that, oh, it's not recommended to use blue because that can throw your color sense off. I don't know if I worry about that. This blue is the cheapest, most commonly available. The white is an artist's tape. It's about 10 times more expensive. Totally up to you. I've never had trouble with the blue throwing me off. I'm not trying to make this a professional art piece, so I'm okay with that. But if you were a professional artist out in the field, maybe you wouldn't want to use the blue. But yeah, that masked around it so you can see I didn't draw pen lines. When you take the paint off, it's like this magic little perfect.
Right.
But yeah, it can damage some papers, so you should be careful.
Yeah.
Like test.
Yeah. Don't
You can also
mash it on really hard.
You can also get what is it called? It's Japanese washi tape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the same. That's the expensive one that I'm talking about.
It costs more, but there's even some specifically for art masking that doesn't damage the paper.
That's the difference. But if you just want to play, the inexpensive stuff works great. Just don't mash it down or it'll pull some of your paper up. So,
yeah, or even if you don't.
So bringing it all together is kind of where we went with the final part of our week 5. Is you're continuing to play with the dots and the grids, and something's going to work for you, we hope. And the idea is these pages that starting to kind of get this idea. You throw in a landscape pedo, throw in a viewfinder, like zoom in view of one thing. You've got your lists, you've got your prose, you've got your metadata. This is actually the same scene, 2 different ways to look at it. My landscape pedo was more focused, and I did two squares, anchoring the page a little differently. That just shows you that there's lots of different ways to do it. You can see the questions, you can see the different details and species focused on bringing it all together. Here's another way. You have a landscape pedo. This was a ocean coast, zeroing in on just a few details of some of the gravel on the beach, and then another detail of something there on the beach. So bringing it all together, this is what we're moving toward, is I'm not going to ever really get into designing pages, but this is why we're exploring different ways of drawing, different ways of seeing things. It creates these interesting layouts and views without getting too hung up on, oh my gosh, there's this formula of a perfect page, but there isn't. If we open our minds and continue to write and continue to experiment with different views, you're going to have interesting pages. So we're going to look at the benchmarks now for our week 5, which is, I kind of put, okay, these, oh, no, benchmark 1. Okay, did you use Viewfinder to focus on detail for one item? How'd you guys do? Yes or not yet? Oh, everybody's like, boom, wow, this was the fastest one yet. 4 said yes, 6 said not yet. So you'll have to try the viewfinders. They're kind of fun. So then our second and third benchmarks that you were asked for your homework for week 5. All right, there are 2 parts to this. You're going to have to scroll down. 1, did you experiment with thumbnails? We didn't discuss that verbally on this time, but that's like before you choose a scene to draw, did you experiment at all, like doing little mini sketchy grids? It's covered in the chapter. Just as a way to like, oh, try like Deborah did, use your hands, do I want to do a horizontal? Do I want to do a vertical? Did you try that? They can be very, very useful. And if you don't want to like mess up your journal, I keep this plain old copier paper. I just keep, let me just show you, pulling one out of the back of my journal so you can see. Actually, I laced them in, so I'll have to hold it up. Come on. Maybe finish that up, and then I'll show you how I just put sheet paper in the back of my journal if I want to experiment with a layout. So did you use a viewfinder and a grid to sketch a landscape-ito? And then did you try the dot method again? So let's see how we're doing. 6 of, I've got 4 of you still have to fill that in. Okay, we've got 8. Okay. All right, good. Okay, let me share the results. Okay. Did you experiment with thumbnails? Okay, 6 of you said yes. Okay, good. And 4 of you are still going to work on it. Viewfinders, 4 said yes, you like it. And 6 said not yet. So viewfinders were a bit of a challenge this time. And dot method, 6 of you like it, 6 of you tried it but don't like it. 1 of you tried it but didn't like it, and the rest you're working on it. So that's always fun. So it's good to see where you are, kind of, everybody's trying. In the back, so what I was going to show you, in the back of my journal, I lace in, or you can just stick it in, just copier paper. This is my scratch board, where, let me show you, literally, there I was practicing drawing mooses, because I wanted to get the essence of moose, because I was hoping to see a live moose. We didn't, but I wanted to get that down. So doing grids, oops, sorry, this isn't focusing. It wants to be back by my head. What's it doing? Hang on, let me change this.
It's probably because you have blurred.
It's this new operating system wants to give a new video effect. Let me turn off that. There, God. Okay. So yeah, there's like a grid. I was testing out things. So throw some scrap paper in the back of your journal and use that for your experiments. So it just doesn't matter what happens to it. What's really frustrating though is like sometimes you'll use it to practice and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, I just drew something really awesome. So cut it out and paste it into the main part of your journal. Because sometimes I find that the act of where I'm like, oh, I'm just practicing and it's just copier paper. And all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I was relaxed. There was no voice going, it has to be perfect. And I draw better when I don't have that pressure. And so, yeah, have that, don't think about it. And if it ends up being good and you like it, you can pull it out and paste it into your main journal. Why not?
Roseanne, it just occurred to me, it came to my memory, when I was training teachers, I found these large Post-it notes that were about this, they're probably 4 by 6.
I remember.
And they didn't have any lines on them. So I was just thinking that's something that I might grab. And they were a little thicker paper. So I don't know if they were the Post-it note brand, but that would be something, yeah, that might be useful.
Okay, you just reminded me of something. So once upon a time, I had a local printer who was like, like something locally owned, like a really amazing printer store. And he would make sticky pads for people. Like you could have your own, if you can find a local printer who can do this, you could have your own paper. So white paper instead of yellow. That's the only thing I wouldn't like about Post-it notes is they're all yellow, aren't they?
These came in multiple colors, so
but if you wanted white, maybe have someone make you a sticky pad that I'll have to look into that because that would be super cool. That way, if you like it, just stick it in your
Is there a glue stick that has the sticky stuff from Post-its in it? That would be a great invention, like a glue stick that you could just use on any paper to make it a sticky note.
Yep, exactly. You can also use I bought those, you can buy a roll of the, what do they call it? Let me just go grab it. It's a little tiny round circle that's sticky on both sides. There it is, Deborah. Let me make you bigger, so hold that up. That would work. Yep, and show what the dots look like. What are they called? Yeah. Crafter.
Okay,
Oh,
crafting
that's
tape.
the tape. And these are just like, and it's non-permanent. Let me just grab. Oh, they're called glue dots.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So let me do this here. Yeah. So glue dots, removable, and they're, you can see the little.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize what I had was permanent.
So you're looking for acid-free kind of.
Didn't even think of that.
Or you could stick, if your notebook has an envelope in the back, or you can stick one in it.
Exactly.
You could put sheets of scrap.
I use the glue dots for paint pans because the magnets come off and they get really manky. Okay. Oh. They work really well.
Glue dots.
So let's see. All right. Any thoughts about, this is like the halfway point you have. Well, it's a little more than halfway now. You've gone week 5. So that's why I wanted to kind of push into this realm of being paying attention, making this reminding us that even though we are focusing more on sketching, because the sketching part helps really put it into your brain, it's very satisfying. It's a growth point. This is a growth activity for yourself. We're not making you sketch because we're trying to make you professional artists. It's more of a introducing an activity that is really, really good for your brain. It makes you happy. The endorphins are released. As long as we can let go of the fear of it has to be perfect. It's really satisfying to sit down and study something and put it on paper. It's really, really fun. So getting to that point, because the next week's, you're going to be doing color, which who's completely new to color? Use your hands. Like, who's new to color? Raise hands. Okay. Who's using colored pencils? Someone here is. Yep. Anyone tackling watercolor? Okay.
I'm
good.
trying.
Yeah. Okay. So watercolor is, we choose it because it's very, very portable. It dries quickly because doing oil or acrylic in your journals doesn't work so great. Can't close your pages very quickly. And it can be very, very, very quick, but it's not easy. We're not going to pretend. There's some tips we're going to work on and why I recommend certain ways for beginners. Instead of starting with a huge tray of colors, I do recommend learning how to mix colors with just a few, because then it's like somebody was saying earlier, we want to focus on our observations and getting something done relatively quickly rather than diving into complex color theory and trying to decide which of the 20 colors to use and not understanding warm colors, cool colors, opaque, transparent, and then suddenly you've mixed ones that aren't very compatible, and then you end up with a gross mess called mud, which I did for years because I didn't understand the relationships. So we'll talk about that. You'll see that in your chapter. And then after that, so that's week 6, and then mapping and diagramming, which is super fun, where we can bring it all together, because that's where you bring your numbers in. And then after that is kind of that wrapping it up with don't overthink it. I talked about bringing it all together rather than page layout. I know we all want page layout, but what I'm hoping is that we'll learn an organic approach to putting all these fun things in, and suddenly you'll look at your page and it's like, oh, cool. There's so many fun things going on. It's a great layout. And you didn't even have to think about, oh, I need to do this and I need to do that. But we're going to talk about tips in the book. So you'll get to those. So it's a longer spread now, and then we'll have December for a kind of graduation. And do use the Padlet. I think I really like how it's getting very active, and I like to see the comments, and it's really fun to see how everyone is interpreting things differently. Really, really like it. And then you can see that there's 20 people signed up for this session, and there's 20 different ways to do something. So that's really fun. Any thoughts so far on this sessions?
And I had a question. Are you going to be offering your minimalist paint sets again anytime
Yes,
soon?
they are they should be on the site now. This is but I do have some now. Yes, so they're on there now.
And then also, before you had mentioned a knife, and I wasn't sure if the recommendation was to order it someplace else, or if you were going to be offering those.
So if you got it depended on, I think some of you, I think, got the full package, which did have the knife included. I got, let me show it to you. It's the Opinel, which is a very inexpensive, great little field knife. I am not allowed to sell them retail. I can only give them away. So that's why those of you who got the full package got them. Let me think of a way that I can sell them. Maybe I'll sell a sticker and it'll come with a knife. But they're
That's funny.
they're branded. Yeah, they were super fun. So it's a very old brand. It's a great company. And the reason I don't qualify as a full retail operation. I have to have brick and mortar to sell it full retail, which is unfortunate, but it's a great little knife. And it's, let's see this one. So let me.
What is the name?
So, and then we had it engraved.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
it's just carbon steel, so it actually sharpens up really well. It's really easy to use. It does lock, and I think they're like $8. They're made in France. So super great little field knife, which a really, really decent blade. So, and you can hook it onto your bag.
What do you use it for?
Lots of things. So if you want to cut something, if you're cutting something to put in your plant press, or dissecting poop, or
Then don't use it to cut your apple once you've done that.
exactly. The book, my second book talks about sharpening your pencil. So you should learn how to sharpen a pencil with a knife. It's actually a really great exercise. I don't have on my desk a traditional pencil, which is hilarious there at the other side of the room. But if you use a knife to sharpen your pencil, you can actually create like a super point or a chisel, so that you can actually then have like a really broad stroke. So many things you can do. And your pencils will, if you buy really good pencils like the Black Wings, which are pretty expensive, if you sharpen it with a knife, it's far less waste. If you use a grinder thingy, you're grinding off a tremendous amount of the lead as well, where if you use a knife, you don't. But anyway, that's just fun. Thanks for asking about that. So maybe I'll figure out a way I can offer a knife. So right now we're just having to use them as like gifts. So any other comments about your assignments and things? So how are you doing overall? Yay, no. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Robin's like, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Oh, and Tina, yes.
I was just going to say, now that you explained the viewfinder and how to really utilize it, now I'm looking forward to it, because I just hadn't quite put it together how to use it. Maybe it's in a chapter I just haven't read yet or something.
It is in the chapter. But yeah, so I also use you can make your own with the clear plastic. You know, you can get this plexiglass at your hardware store for $5 or $8. They'll cut it for you and then use a dry erase marker. What I do is you draw the grid on your paper first, and then put it on your paper and trace it. And then it's the perfect proportion.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You don't have to, no
That makes sense.
guessing.
I bought one. I've got two, I think, of your perspects from
Yeah.
your
And then
from
you just,
kids,
you
but
know,
I didn't really know how to, yeah. I use that for putting the paint, you know,
Oh,
in the
good.
book when it's outside, just like, you know, you showed us. So that was terrific. The way to really put the viewfind on your page, though, it was very helpful. So
Good. Yeah, that can really help if you're overwhelmed with, I think we saw on Padlet, I can't remember who it was. Somebody was like, I picked a really complex scene and I wasn't happy with it. Now, I have to say, whatever that, I can't remember who did it. We'd have to go flop over to Padlet. It was a winter scene and it had lots and lots of trees and branches and very, very complex and difficult. So yeah, whoever did that, you're right. It was probably a little much to tackle. And you said you weren't happy with it. However, those of us who looked at it were like, oh my gosh, no, that's great. It captured the essence of the scene. Don't be hard on yourself. It was really great. Was it exactly what you wanted? No, it rarely is. Eventually though, you're going to get to that point where you're like, oh no, you know, my goal is to do just a little capture. You're not trying to do an exact copy of that scene. You're never going to do that in nature journaling. That's kind of not the point. You're gonna hold
this
up.
is what it looks like when you.
Oh
when you
yeah,
don't
I'm
use
gonna
the
make you
viewfinder.
make it bigger. Nice.
But that's what it looks like when you don't use a viewfinder, and it's
Exactly.
like
You're like,
you know, it's like it's hilarious when I think about it, because I think I would have enjoyed it more just, you know, knowing how to use the viewfinder. This was I don't know, a couple months ago, but
but that's okay, you know, and that's a great page. It's not that it's right or wrong, but
yeah.
the viewfinders are just to help you
Mhm.
edit, right? Edit down and make something doable. By all means, if you have plenty of time and you want to tackle a big spread, do it. But it does take a lot. Sometimes it's exhausting. You're like, oh my God, why did I do that? Any other comments before we sign off?
Could you talk about, can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about like the process of watercolor? Like, do you get your page wet all the time, or do you put it on dry, or on dry paper, or wet paper? Could you give some like hints before we get going?
Sure. The chapter does cover that. But there's basically, you described like different ways to approach watercolor, and you don't always get the whole page wet every time. The main takeaway about watercolor is that it's water and color. So it's pigment and water. And you can control both. You control water and you control the pigment. How you do that is the key to tackling and learning watercolor. So if you think about when you spill water across something, a tablecloth, and it goes and then it sinks in. So you put water on a page, it's going to go across and sink in. And if it's already wet, and then you put the pigment on it, that pigment's going to want to go wherever it's wet. So pigment loves to just flow in the water. That's why it's watercolor. And you put that on the paper that's already wet, that you put, say, clear water on, it's going to be it's just going to go, and it's going to spread out really fast. And sometimes we want that look, like if we're doing a sky, or you want a really blurry look or something, and you can drop different colors in and get really cool effects. So play with that. If you want nice crisp edges, you don't wet the paper first. And then you have to be careful if you're painting something that you let things dry in between. And you'll find out soon enough, if you touch something you want to make a nice edge, but it's still wet, all of a sudden it just, your color, that color is just going to keep going. But if you let it dry, then it'll stop. So experiment. and you'll see, and there's the book talks about that. And then we'll do some live practices and stuff in December. And if you're having a lot of trouble, we can always hop on one more time between now and the 18th. Those of you who are trying watercolor, we could do, an hour of just watercolor practice together. So email me if you want to do that. If you're really struggling, you're like, this is ridiculous. We can do some quick tips, and then I can also see what colors you're using and what you're doing. And I'm really serious in the book when I say, if you want to do watercolor and you're trying watercolor and you buy a really cheap set from Michael's or something, you will be disappointed in how it looks, because it's not really rich color, and it won't behave right, and it won't mix with each other really well. And we can talk about why. The book talks about why. Watercolor is very complex, so that's why I try to narrow it down. People spend their whole lives working on color theory and color mixing. There's this wonderful Australian artist, Jane Blundell. If you want to go down the rabbit hole of color here, well, maybe you shouldn't. Not yet. But she's a master colorist. This is her life, right? She's a professional artist, but she shares all this color theory. But I've got drawers and drawers of colors. I don't use almost any of them anymore. I like to be out doing stuff. I don't want to be in here messing with colors. That said, if colors make you like happy and that's what you want to do it. But just be forewarned that it's complicated, and tackling lots and lots of colors in watercolor, like lots of individual colors, you really have to learn exactly what's in that tube and what its characteristics are. That's just a warning. So email me if you want to do a session, but I want you to practice some first. And then if you want to do like sometime in the early December, we can jump on and play watercolor. There's also, there's some really simple video tutorials on the website too for watercolor.
Oh, good. Okay. Great.
Roseanne, don't you have one? That wonderful tutorial you did in the nature journaling annual thing, but I think I've seen that session you did.
The Wild Wonder. Yes, there's a version of that on my website.
Okay, that everyone I highly recommend. Will change the way that you are able to get out into nature and journal with just a few colors.
Right.
And really that's what our journaling really is splashes of color. Whereas it's hard not to want to make it a big piece of art, whereas journaling really is not. It's more about the splashes of color, which she teaches you very well on those tutorials.
Great. I'll put that link when I do the recording here and send it out. I'll put the link to that. It's there in your materials, but it gets buried. So I'll just remind you, if you want to see what minimalist triad painting is all about and how that works and why. And that the main reason I do it that way is because it's just to simplify so you can get out and enjoy rather than spend many, many months. Most of us don't have the time that it takes to tackle professional watercolor. So
Roseanne, since we're closing here, and next meeting in December is our official last meeting.
Yeah.
Are you going to be doing a class on your second book?
Yes, I just haven't figured out exactly kind of when and how to do that one. That one's a little different because I'm thinking about that, but it won't be until mid 2023, I think. Good question. Yeah. All right. Well, as always, email me questions, but those of you who want some extracurricular watercolor, if you're just starting out and completely bonkers, just email me and then we'll set up something. All right.
Great.
Well, enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, all.
Thank you.